15-minute speakers.
Hello everybody, my name is Mark. I'm an alcoholic. And I'm grateful to be here today. Grateful to have the opportunity to share a little bit with you guys. A little bit of my experience, of what it was like, what happened, what's it like now. 15 minutes. I won't have a lot of time to go through all my history of my life, but I want to talk a little bit about, what it felt like when I was drinking, and what brought me here, and what it's like now, and how I got here today. And I think for me, one of the things that I guess when I look back at my past, and even prior to drinking or when I was drinking, was the fact that I was always going through a lot of feelings and emotions that I was not able to express or define or understand. And growing up in a family and going to different schools, I really felt like I was isolated, like I couldn't get out of myself. I couldn't express or be honest with people, especially if people hurt me, or if I wanted to make new friends. I was always so full of fear of doing that. And as I got older into, let's say, being a teenager, starting liking girls and stuff like that, it was impossible for me to go and say, hey, I like you. I couldn't say those simple things. Or if there was things that I wanted in life, an example, like when I was 14, I don't know why this stuff is coming to my head. I guess my heart I wasn't sure about it. But when I was 14 years old and I went to high school, it's just an example. I went to a new school, a freshman. I wanted to play baseball because I played baseball Little League, and I was semi-good. I had confidence that I can keep up and play. And when I went to the tryouts, I asked my parents to get me a glove, and the glove that I had, I didn't feel confident in the glove. I blamed it on the glove, and so I walked up to where everybody was practicing, and I saw everybody practicing and throwing balls and stuff like that. And I remember I got there and I stopped and I looked and I told myself, you're not as good as them. And I remember I turned around and I walked home. And I didn't say anything to anybody. I didn't tell anybody that. And that was the kind of the story of my life. And when I turned 16 years old, there was friends in the neighborhood that I would hang out with. And we drank, and they wanted to go and drink and have a house party. And I remember I was like, oh man, it's my first time. I don't know. I've seen it on TV and movies and stuff. And when I showed up and I started to drink, I remember I put those few drinks in there, and all of a sudden, all that confidence, I had a new freedom and a new happiness. And I had a confidence, and there was something that happened within me. There was an effect that occurred within me that just allowed me to break down all the walls, and I was able to do all the things that I, for years, been thinking about. I was able to do that. I was able to go up and say, look, I like you. You're pretty. Hey, who are you? Hey, I don't like you. I was able to do all those things and walk with confidence. And I was accepted at that time, and other people were doing the same thing, so I felt a part of at last, And with that, whenever I put alcohol in me, I just wanted to drink more and more. I didn't want to manage and control it. I wasn't thinking of managing and controlling my drinking. I was thinking, man, if I drink more, I'm going to feel better. That's the way I drank, If I put something in there, I want more, I want more, I want more. And to me, there was nothing wrong with that. The problem that happened with me is the more I put into me, the more out of control I got. I lost control when I drank, and I ended up, I would say things and hurt people, I would say what was on my mind. If I was angry, I'd tell you. I would say mean things. I was verbally abusive. I didn't get into a lot of physical fights, but when I did, or if I was in that place, I didn't care about the consequences. And so I found myself, going and I got my license. I started to drive, and I tell my friends, okay, I'm only going to drink a little because I got to drive and get us all home. I'm 18, 19 years old. And I find myself either giving the keys to somebody, a friend of mine that was 50 that didn't have a license to drive, or I would get in the car and drive. And so I was putting myself in a very dangerous, harmful situation. That's what I did. And not only that, but I was putting other people in harmful situations. So I was causing harm early on in my drinking. And through the years, I had like 19 years of drinking like that, on and off. There were periods and times where I would stop for short periods of time. But during those times, I'd be restless, irritable, discontent. I'd be a grouch, is what I would be. I wouldn't be myself, and people would say, I'll just have a few drinks. I can't. As much as I don't want to see you drink, I'd rather have you drinking than have to be around you like that. And I'd put the drinks in, and I'd manage to control it for maybe a few days, and I'd have to go hang out with people that drank like I did, so I didn't stand out. That's what I ended up starting to do. So if it was family, I'd find a few guys that would drink like I and I'd hang out with them. So over time, the people that I hung out with, people that drank like me, and I got into trouble with the law and stuff like that. I hurt family. I ended up getting married. I got divorced because of my alcoholism. I damaged a lot of relationships in my family. I lost jobs. I went way far down the scale, and I learned in this program that you don't have to go way far down the scale. I came to the meetings 4 years prior to my stopping drinking, and I came to the meetings long enough to hear. I used to come to the meetings drunk because I got to the point where I couldn't live without alcohol. I'd wake up and drink. I'd go to bed drinking. Because when I went to bed, if I didn't have enough alcohol in me, I'd have the 4 horsemen. I'd have terror when I was going to sleep, and then when I'd wake up 5 hours later after drinking all day, I'd wake up and I wouldn't be able to breathe, and the birds would be singing, and I'd just be a mess. And I need a few drinks just to calm that. Sometimes I need somebody to get to work or just pick up the phone is where I got in the end. I had come to the meetings long enough to learn that there was a solution. But the one thing I learned looking back now is that you guys couldn't convince me that I was an alcoholic, but you guys did convince me that there was a solution. But in that solution, there was things that I had to do. And I wasn't willing to do that because I still thought that all I needed to do was sober up, just get the drink out of my system, because my pattern was, for those 4 years, when I'd lose the job or I'd lose a relationship or things were getting really hard, I would come here and hang out, get my welcome chips and all that stuff, get a 30-day chip, maybe a 60-day chip. But by that time, I was now in a position where I'd get another job, and I'd get into another relationship, I'd get that license back, or I'd get the car or whatever, and then I wouldn't come here anymore, and I'd go back and think, okay, I got this now, let me try again. And I did that for 4 years, and I finally got to the point where I felt like I was going to die. And if I wasn't going to die, I felt like I wanted to, and I would ask God to take my life because I was tired of living like that. The mountain to come back seemed so big, I didn't think there was any hope. I'm the alcoholic of the hopeless variety. And I got to the point when I had to pray for the courage to come into this door the last time I came in on my sobriety day. All the other times I'd be drinking and walk in, you guys would talk to me and say, yeah, I'm good, I'm all right, yeah, I know. But the last time I came in, after drinking the last time, I came in so afraid and so scared because I didn't want to walk out that door, and I raised my hand in a burning desire at the last meeting of the day. And I told them that I was terrified, I was scared, because when I walked out of that door, I knew what I was going to do, and I was going to go right straight to the liquor store, so I told them. And I was going to get a 12-pack, and I was going to drink that, and go back to the store, and I was going to drink. And I played a tape for them and told them I'm going to end up either in the hospital or jail because situations that were happening during that day were unacceptable, and I was going to get angry. And I told them I didn't want to do that, but I didn't know how not to do that. And right after that, they asked me if I was willing to go any length, and I said, yeah, I'm willing to go to any length. I am. And they said, okay. They gave me some direction right there. And I said, whoa, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can do that. It took me some time, it took me about 15 minutes to say, okay. And I was at a turning point, and that's what it felt like. The turning point for me is when there's a drink over there waiting for me, there's you guys on this side saying, come this way, and there's a drink waiting for me there, and I'm looking at the two and having to make that decision. And when I'm in that position, that's where I am powerless, because that sucks and that sucks. And there's no hope for me. The only thing I know is I've done that one for 19, 20 years, and I have enough evidence because alcohol itself convinced me. It beat me down. It tore up my life. It robbed me of everything in my life. The book says it's a rapacious predator, which means it's going to do it and do it and do it whether I like it or not. And so I decided, you know what, let me try this. If it doesn't work, then I can always go back. I didn't want to go back though, and so I had hope from 4 years of coming in this room that it might work for me, because I saw people coming in here for 4 years while I was drinking and going back and coming back. I saw them get sober, get a sponsor, work the steps, and I saw their lives change. So I was coming in 4 years later, and I was full of fear. And I'm watching guys that have 2 years now, 3 years now. They got a job, they got relationships, they're The obsession to drink is gone. They're not struggling. They're not fighting drinking or nothing. And here I am, just a total mess, and these guys are living life, productive members of society. And so I had hope that it would work for me, and so I was willing to go in late at that point. I started looking for a sponsor. I found one who would say in the meetings, he would say, get a sponsor, work the steps. Find somebody with working knowledge of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps and 12 traditions, and have that person take you through the steps. And I hear him share all the time, and I'm like, man, I gotta go find one of those. And I hear him at all the meetings, and be like, man, I gotta find somebody like him, and I'm looking for a guy like him, and that's where I was. And like 2 months, like a month and a half later, it dawned on me, because I went through 3 sponsors, and they were just crazy. You know, they were giving me direction that had nothing to do with the book. They were telling me, if I asked them to go to the bathroom, they were telling me, wait until we get to where we need to be, and then you can use the bathroom. So they were like trying to manage and control me, and it was just nuts. I was like, when are we going to do the steps? When are we going to get the solution? That's what you guys have been saying for 4 years. It's like, I don't need anybody to tell me when I go to the bathroom. I need somebody to get me into the solution, because I already knew, I heard it. I was desperate, I really was. And so this guy, I fired that sponsor, said, no, I couldn't call you at 8 o'clock because I was going to the bathroom. And he was mad at me because it was 8:05. And I was like, you know what, this is done, I can't do this anymore. I cannot manage my bowel movements for you. Unless I call you on the toilet, and I don't know if that's going to work out. I just felt demoralized is what happened. And so what I ended up doing is, right when I told him no, I called this guy because I had gotten his number, and I said, will you sponsor me? He said, I'll be happy to sponsor you. He's like, do you have a big book in the 12 and 12? And I said, yes. He said, okay, read the doctor's opinion and write a summary about it. And then, and write a divorce letter to alcohol, because alcohol was your first love. Alcohol is what you had a relationship from the past. And you're going to break up with alcohol, and you don't want to go back right now. So write a page letter, divorcing goodbye to alcohol, drugs, or whatever, and then call me. He gave me direction like within 5 minutes of calling him, and you know what? That's what I needed, because I was the real alcoholic. I don't need 90 meetings in 90 days without it. I can't go to 90 meetings in 90 days before I work my step. I cannot do that. That's not who I am. I need to get in the solution. I was here long enough to know what I need to do. That's what I was here. That's what I came back. That's what I surrendered to. He got me in that work, and he let me read the doctor's opinion, and I found out what I suffered from. I knew what made me different from other people that drank and didn't have consequences like I did. I have an obsession of the mind. When I'm not drinking, I'm thinking of drinking, or I'm just so restless and irritable that only that drink is going to relieve me of that. And I have an allergy to the body, so once I get a few drinks in me, and my mind says, okay, you're good. My body says, no, you're not. We gotta keep going. And I'll tell you when we're going to stop. And then alcohol says jump, I say how high and which direction. And then I keep going until the bitter end is what the book says, and that's where I was going. So, that allergy is something that differentiates me. He had me read the Bill story and write a summary of my experience, use it as an outline to keep my story in line with his, and I saw the unmanageability. And by doing those two things, I saw the powerlessness and the unmanageability of my life, and I was able to accept the first step, that I was powerless over alcohol. And then my life was so unmanageable, it was crazy. And then we went to We Agnostics, and through that he had me look at, the willingness to believe in a power greater than myself. And I told him, I said, I have a lot of religion in my background. I know who God is. I know who God is. I don't need to fight a new power. I'm good. I don't need to change my perception. And he told me, he said, did that power keep you sober? And when he asked me that question, I had to look at it and say, no. Because the facts were, I was still drinking despite having that power working in my life. And so it was really, really difficult for me to abandon my old ideas and to let go of my old ideas. But he said it's just the willingness to believe in a power greater than yourself. Something it's not you. You're not God. You're not the master of your universe or everybody around you. The world doesn't revolve around you. Can you accept that? And I realized at that point how selfish, how self-centered I was. That I thought that there wasn't anything greater than me. But I was everything. And And so at that point, I was willing to say yes. Let's start from that simple concept. And through that, I was able to turn my will and my life over to that, say the third step prayer, through the how it works, in the chapter how it works, we read part of that today. And what I come to find was that I needed that higher power, that power of God, if you like. I needed that power not to go get a job or get that relationship again, or to go back and try to get things back in my life. The reason I needed that power in that third step was so that I could do my fourth step and find out, what are the things that are blocking me from that power? What are the things that are blocking me from a relationship with you guys or my family or anything? Because when I did my fourth step and I made that fearless and searching moral inventory, I found out how many resentments I had. I found out how fearful I was. And I found out how many people I had harmed. And I had minimized all that stuff. I had purposeful forgetting. I would drink to forget. And I needed that power to search deep inside of me to bring that stuff to the surface. And so I wouldn't get overwhelmed. I needed that power so I can look at it with His grace and say, okay, they said this is going to work. And I put it all down on paper and I saw who I was. And I made the decision, I don't want to live like that anymore. That's not who I want to be. And I wasn't willing to do a fifth step when I was doing my third step. But when I said and I saw who I was and I faced who I was, and I said I don't want to live like that, I told my sponsor, I said I don't want to be this guy. What do I got to do to change it? And we did that fifth step and I shared everything with him. And I found out what my defects were. I was selfish, self-centered, dishonest, and so full of fear it was ridiculous. And I didn't recognize that before, but today I understand that's who I am in my nature. I humbly asked God to remove those things and made a list of all the people I had harmed. I already had that list in my resentments, and I became willing to make amends to them all. It's been a process for me. The steps, I've heard so many times that they're scary, but my experience, if you do these steps thoroughly, and if you get the right sponsor that's done the steps, that can go through the steps with you according to the big book, that it's not that scary. It's not. It's a fear. There's a cloud and there's a fog, and I've never walked through that fog, and the reality is people are dying because they're not willing to walk through that. Today, I'm willing to take somebody through those steps because I look around and I see people die. There's other people that are willing to help you as well. If you need a sponsor and you're willing to work the steps and you're willing to go any length, you don't want to live like that anymore, talk to me after the meeting. Or find somebody else that has working knowledge of the big book and the 12 and 12 and it's going to take you through these steps. Because that's where the solution is and that's where the power is. Thank you for the show.